Hello, welcome back everyone. Let's continue our Docker journey. So I did mention that I was going to tell you how to create your own images, but I figured that there are two things you should know before that. How to be comfortable with Docker run command and Docker execute command. So in this video, we will be looking what options do you have when you run the Docker run command. Right, we already tried one. So we have to be sure what other options we have. Docker run is like the most important command of Docker. So it has the most options compared to all other commands. We are not going to go through all of them, obviously, because for them you have to know other concepts which are still yet to be taught. So, but the basic ones, the most important ones, let's get started. So let's check what images we have. We have the nginx one. So let's revise and let's pull Ubuntu, right? And you know that once you have the image, you can run it directly using IT, interacting with the terminal and our image name, which is Ubuntu. That's all you really need. And we have to use its shell, so bin bash. And we are in a shell and we exit it. Do we have that container? Not in the active ones, but in stopped containers we still have it. This is for debugging purposes. You still have this, so let me introduce one more thing. If you just want to use the container for a while or for one time and you don't want it to collect in the list of dead containers and create a mess. So Docker made that easy. So let me just remove this one. Einstein. So this one is gone. So obviously we have no containers now. Instead of running normally like we did, this is what we did, right? We are going to add one more flag, remove. This just tells it when I'm done using it, remove it. I don't want it afterwards. I don't want to debug it. I don't care. So I'm going to use it like before, and I'm going to exit it. Now I exited it, and you will see there is nothing. It's gone. So this is clean. So if you want to use it just once over the time, you will have many use cases in which you just have to use it once. So this is very, very handy flag. Next is something you should know. So I'm running this container and, well, I'm using the bin bash command. But what if I don't use the bin bash command? What if I tell just tell me it won't run. Response, starting container, cost process, executive file, not found in path, okay. This won't run, but this would, right? It's not configured to run, don't worry about that. It's nothing to do with Docker. It has to do with Ubuntu's image. So it did run the list command, but where is the container? It's dead. It stopped. But consider if you have an application in your Docker container, which is going to be most likely the case. You are creating an image for a reason, right? So you don't want to do that you don't just want to run it and, well, stop it just as soon as you exited that. No, you want to keep it running. So for that, you use a flag. Let's type what we already know. If you run it like this, it will be normal, but adding D. This refers to D attached. Means don't attach my terminal to it. Run it, but and keep it running. I don't want to interfere with it, but keep it running. And detached, separately keep it running. I will use my terminal as I wish, but after this command, keep it running, don't kill it. And there, when you look at the active containers, you will see it. It is up for 2 seconds, it hasn't exited. So that's very useful to know. One other thing you should know, let's cover one more thing. About ports. So many applications, almost all applications, are going to run on some port, right? Your Jenkins, MySQL, etc., etc., or even your custom application. You will very likely assign it a port. But container is a separate entity. It has nothing to do with the machine you're running. It has nothing to do with the internet. It is not connected to it. It is running in its own, as it says, container. It is contained. So, for example, this is why I have the nginx image. It's a web server for those who don't know. So it helps you push your HTML code and display your website. We're not getting into that. All you have to know, it has its web server at port 80. And we have the image. If you don't, just do docker pull nginx and that should do it. And we are going to run it detached. Just run the nginx in a container. And we have the container running. Actually, let's not use this one. Let me introduce one little thing to make it handy. We can name this container, and we'll just call it web. So now our container is named, so it's easy for us to remember that which container it was. I named it web. This is where it is. This is our container and it's running nginx. Now, I didn't do bin bash and its container is running. How do I interact with it? That's where docker execute or exec for short comes in play. Docker exec web. Web is my container name, or you can also use container ID if you didn't assign a name. Assigning name is completely optional, but it does make things handy, right? So docker execute a command in web container, all right, and then you just type in whatever command you want. It could be as simple as listing down things. See, fast enough, right? But we want to know what is nginx server running or not. So for that, we have our service command, basic Linux commands, service nginx status. Nginx is running. So if I do, nginx runs at port 80 by default. So if I do curl localhost, now obviously this command is being run inside the container at port 80. There you go, you have an output. But if I do curl localhost 80, now this is my machine, this is not the container, this is my host, this is my laptop. There will be nothing because obviously everything is running inside the container. But what is the use of running it inside the container? You have no browser, nothing. It cannot do anything like that. So that's why we have to somehow connect this container to my machine. So anybody who curls into my machine or who connects to my machine, who has the IP of my machine, sees the output inside the container. For that, Docker provided a way to expose this port to our host machine. So whatever is inside that container at local host 80, its own IP address at port 80, we want it on our machine where we are running Docker, for example. So for that, this container is not going to work. This is something you have to do at runtime. So this container, let's just ignore this container and create a new one. this is how we created the web container, right? So we are going to name this web port. Let's name it something simple, web server. And no, we don't have to run any commands. It's detached and it's web server and it's using the nginx image. This is the same command that we used before. Now we are going to tell port at my host machine, that is my laptop, connect that my host machine's laptop, sorry, my host machine's port to the port of the container. So left one is my host machine and right one is the container's port. This could be anything. I can take it anything, but let's take the same. I could say 8080 as well. It will work perfectly fine, or 6060. Good typo. But I'm using it. It's the same port for convenience. Now the port of that container is exposed to the port of my machine. Now let's exec again into web server, right? And just let's test it first. Commands are running. What's the status of my service? It is running. And if I curl the local host at port 80, nginx, it's running inside the container. But since I did link it to my machine, now I'm not running docker exec. This is my machine. Is it there? It's there. Let me just clear it. It's there, right? And obviously I can see the same from my browser. Now localhost port 80. This is cache. Port 80 is default, so even if I don't mention it, it's the same. Port 80 is default in a web server browser in HTTP. So it's the same thing, and you can see the output, right? So that's another important Docker concept you have to know. Docker run concept, to be precise. Yes, that's it for this video. I think it has gone quite long. So let me just do one final thing to show you how to clean up things. These are my containers, and this are all of my containers. That's a lot of them. And basic command is, if I want to remove a container, docker remove the container ID or the container name, whatever. But there are so many of them, I have to do that individually. Instead, Docker gave us a nice command, docker container prune. Warning, this will remove all stopped containers. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, it's all garbage. So now if you check, of course, it's still removing it, I think. Alright, it's only removes the dead containers, right? I missed that point. Nice. So even if you just do docker ps, these are not stopped containers. So you have to stop them first. Stop my web server, stop my web. You can stop all of them at once as well using basic Linux. But let's do that because there are not many. Docker stop optimistic ring. Is there any container running? No. Docker container prune, remove all the stop containers, yes. And now you have, oh god, typos. No container whatsoever. Same goes for images. You can't keep these images all the time. They do take some storage. That's quite a bit. So instead of remove, you use RMI remove image and image name with tag if there is a tag specified. That removed my Ubuntu, this will remove my nginx. So I have no Docker images left. I'm completely clean, no containers. That's it for this video. We will get into what options do we have in Docker exec, Docker execute, which is interesting. So see you in next video.